Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Review guy in the flesh, and I wanted to basically do a vlog on this particular film because I wanted to try something different instead of having to just like labor over what I have to write in terms of exploring what's good about the film, what's bad about the film. I want to actually express this through video form because I feel like this will be much fresher instead of having to take eons for me to just basically write out reviews. And I wanted to try something different because honestly, if you try something different, I think it doesn't hurt to at least try it once, even if it doesn't pan out. So for the next couple films, I wanted to basically try some vlog stuff. And don't worry, you'll get your traditional written stuff coming up soon. I might actually finish that up very soon later on with some of the other films. So today I'm going to basically be doing a review on The Neon Demon, directed by and written by, let's not forget, Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Ellie Fanning, Jenny Malone, with a cameo from Keanu Reeves, and a bunch of other actors that, quite honestly, I don't know. I wish I did. And I can't remember the names from the top of my head because I think they're relatively newcomers, or they probably haven't done a lot of major films until now, or at least within the indie scene. So, basically, yeah, let's get to it with pretty much what the whole point of the film is, right? Because you gotta know the film, just a little bit. So, the film follows the character Jesse, played by Ellie Fanning, who essentially is a newcomer in Los Angeles, just starting out as a stalwart model, trying to find her footing in this industry, and then, of course, Jenny Malone discovers her character, along with two other models who are basically the bulk of the supporting cast. And essentially, what starts out as innocent beginnings becomes somewhat of a power trip to a downward spiral as to how seductive, yet at the same time corruptible, the model world really is, like the fashion industry really is. And I think that's sort of the point of the film, is that it's meant to be somewhat of a satirical critique on the surreal, absolutely nightmarish nature of the business itself. And parts of it works, parts of it comes across as a bit confusing and a little bit condescending at times, if you really think about it. So that's pretty much the gist of the film, without really getting into the meat of it, only because that's pretty much all you get from just a couple scenes. For the most part, it's just a series of really beautiful yet very vapid shots of basically the models doing their business, basically posing. And that's kind of what I saw for like a good chunk of the film. There are moments of character development, but for the most part, they're very few and far in between. And the development usually goes for the lead characters, which is thankfully one of the better parts of the film, are the lead performances. But to start off with, what really works with this film is the cinematography. It is absolutely stunning, gorgeous, immaculate, absolutely framed to a T in terms of how they like really set up those shots, in terms of really creating the sense of wide space and the sense of power that models get when they're basically putting themselves on display for the world to see, or in this case, a large room. And it really comes across as absolutely stunning to watch at times. And it really makes this sort of dreamlike state to the entire atmosphere to this film that is nothing short of amazing to see. This is probably one of the finest cinematography jobs I've seen in a film. And I would hope it would get some recognition down the road. Especially Oscars. Yeah. Or at least get some recognition for the cinematography, the technical achievements made with this film through just simply using the framing and just the editing of those shots. Also, the sound design, particularly from the use of sound effects, and of course the score, is nothing short of amazing. Starting with the sound effects, it's used effectively in different scenes to really, really showcase just the tension of a scene. Particularly, I think the best use of it is the use of silence. And it's worth noting. Thankfully, there's not a lot. Thankfully, there's no jump scares in this film. Thank God, because I think we've had enough of that with horror films. But there's a lot of tension and a lot of suspense built through just the minimum use of sound. And I bring this up because I've noticed this with some of the more recent horror films slash thrillers that have used this to great effect. And this is no exception with this film. This film uses it to great effect in some of the scenes. And then, of course, the soundtrack from Cliff Martinez, as well as some of the techno beat tracks. I'm sorry if that comes across as just being ignorant to that culture. I don't mean to. I really don't. But for the tracks that Julian Winding worked on, it's really cool. Like, there's some great tracks in here, and Cliff Martinez does a great minimalistic approach, and this is like the third film he's composed for Winding Refn, and I think it really showcases that he really gets his style and really knows how to create music to fit that visual style that he's known for, in terms of really extracting the somewhat beauty to it. And I think he took some of those lessons from Only God Forgives from a visual standpoint to heart by creating somewhat of a mystical, somewhat captivatingly magical feel to the film. And I know that's a weird way to put it, but it does have this sort of like strange surreal quality to it that is hard to really put your finger on, but it is there, and it fits with this particular voice for the film. And I say the other positive, and I think this is the last one I felt really works with the film, is the performances. They're fantastic, particularly the leads. The supporting, that's another story, but for the leads, Jenny Malone and Ellie Fanning, they did a fantastic job in the film, and I think they really brought out the best with those characters. And I really think the way they develop their character arcs from a visual standpoint is nothing short of amazing. And it's probably one of the few times where I feel like the direction and acting are in sync with each other. The supporting cast, that's another story. Most of them are just kind of forgettable, and they don't leave much of an impression, unfortunately. Keanu Reeves, for all you fans out there, I hate to say it, he's basically a cameo in this film. And his character really does not pertain to the main plot, besides really creating this somewhat sleazy, kind of dirty quality to the Los Angeles that we've seen a dozen times before already. And it's very cliched. He plays somewhat of a cliched character, unfortunately. So it doesn't leave much of an impression in the film. The other problem, it's a very thin story. And there's a lot of thinly underwritten characters. I mean, there are some characters you feel like have some importance, but at the same time, they just sort of like pop up, and then all of a sudden they get dropped from the entire film. And you're wondering, were they meant to do something important with the film? It's supposed to be left open for interpretations, which is part of what you'd expect from this type of film. But when the interpretations are so thinly developed, it's just hard to really come up with our own ideas of what we're supposed to take away from those characters, when those characters are just sort of being played by the numbers by a lot of those performances. And the mere fact that I can't really name any of the other characters, with the exception of Jesse and maybe Jenny Malone's character, really showcases that it just has so many underwritten characters that it's hard to really kind of get a clear sense of the world itself. You need characters to really create a sense of place. And when you're lacking that character, you're just seeing beautiful imagery with no meaning and no purpose whatsoever. And unfortunately, that is the biggest problem with this film. And it really haunts it through the entire film. And then the third act happens. And don't worry, no spoilers. I'm not getting into spoilers with this particular act. But whoa, it represents the best way to put it without going into details. To sum it up, it is a drastic tone shift. It changes gears immediately, 180 degrees, and it's going to make and break a lot of people with this film. Much more drastic than some of the other films coming up down the road in this particular genre horror. So, for me, it was both silly and at the same time, it wasn't I would say it is disturbing enough that I was just like, wow, they went there particularly. And the use of the imagery through the editing is just, wow, that was just, it's one of those acts, those changes in tone and act that you're just like blown away that they actually had the balls to actually just do it. And you're just left flabbergasted at just how stupendously courageous and yet moronic it comes across. And unfortunately, that is the third act in a nutshell. It is absolutely just a total tone shift, and it was both maddening and at the same time kind of goofy that I just laughed at it unintentionally. I'll admit, I kind of had to stifle some laughs because it was unintentionally funny that they would actually go into that direction and it would just come across as this freaking goofy. I kind of knew what happened, but because they think we're all not that perceptive to pick it up, they just literally straight up say what happens near the end. And I'm just like, yeah. Like I hadn't figured that out like 5-10 minutes ago. And I think that's due in part to probably why this film is such a mixed bag of really interesting, like really fantastic visuals, but nothing to really attach it to of substance. And the critique is there. Like, the satire and the critique is very much present throughout this whole film. And it's appreciated, and I think it's half executed well enough that this is a fascinating film to watch. From a audience standpoint, but also as a filmmaker too, because this also showcases how style can override that substance and really create something that doesn't have much to really warrant a discussion, unfortunately. Unlike with Only God Forgives, where there were some great ideas, there's some beautiful philosophical moments and some themes they explore, particularly of the Asian culture, so, like in a mirage of just having no structure to it. Because that was one of the biggest problems I had with that film, was that you had these great scenes but no structure to it. Now you have a structure here, but only a couple scenes that really connect with each other. And that's the problem with this film, is that it goes for one thing, thriller, and then it goes into horror territory in the last, like, I'm trying to think. I think it was the last 15-20 minutes of the film. And this is like a 2-hour film, so yeah, there were a lot of scenes that kind of dragged, and I think the pacing is an issue big time with this film. Now, if it seems like I hate this film, I really don't. I think it is a gorgeous film. Technically, from a technical standpoint, it is absolutely stunning. From visuals to sound design, and I would say some of the performances, particularly the leads, are fantastic. But the story is so undercooked, from the characters to the plot structure, as well as really having nothing of importance being developed to really enforce the themes and, more importantly, the satire that they want to explore. They don't find reasonable narrative means to justify this story. That's a big problem, especially for repeat viewings, since he's one of the few directors that I think I can honestly say is worth doing repeat viewings. This is probably one of the few films I don't really have that much desire to see again, unfortunately. And then that third act, I think the best way to sum it up is that it changes gears completely. And quite honestly, that's going to make or break a lot of people if you ever get a chance to watch it. And this is sort of weird to instill to you. I'm not discouraging you to see it. I'm just giving you one view, and I say keep it in mind if you get a chance to see this film, because I think at the end of the day, this is at least worth a viewing. But for the conscientious, the financial, for those who really want to basically speak with their wallets, really showcase what films they like and not, this isn't really worth a view, to be honest. This is more like a film that you should watch when it comes to Amazon Prime, because it is going to come to Amazon Prime, since this was produced by Amazon Studios. So if you got a Prime membership, you'll be able to see it there for free. Just, yeah, you got to wait a couple months. So I think you got to wait like maybe 2 months, because I think it's like a 2 or 3 month wait before the film goes through that streaming service. Kind of the same deal as Spike Lee's Chirac. So overall, Neon Demon, it's visually beautiful. It's a visually stunning film, but at the same time, it's a very shallow film that really lets style tell the story, but doesn't give it substance to justify that style and to really give it the legs it needs to really, shall we say, kind of justify its critique of the fashion world. I mean, we've seen it done before, particularly with Zoolander, and that was a comedy. But that was an effective comedy because it actually took its time to not only develop the characters, but really create a narrative that was simple, yet at the same time reliable enough to actually make that satire and critique of the fashion world work. I bring that up because this is the case where it's done in a unique way, but at the same time, it doesn't say anything new in regards to how fatalistic this particular industry is with young women, and of course with what it means to find the true essence of beauty, be it from a physical to to a physical means or through an inner means spiritually. So Neon Demons, one of those films that quite honestly is going to you're either going to love or hate. It's about the same as Only God Forgives. It's a very divisive film. You're either going to love it or you're going to absolutely hate this film. So take that into consideration when you really check this film out. I apologize for the length of it, but of course, this is like my first attempt at it, so hopefully I could like shorten it down a little bit more. And this is sort of coming off of my trip to the theater. So I actually just recorded this about a few moments ago after I'd seen the film. So take it with a grain of salt, but I would say that this is one of those few films that honestly comes around and reminds you of how visual that medium can be, but at the same time, how important it is to have a script, to have a story, and to have characters that can at least justify that style and the theme that ultimately has to be clear and has to at least grab the audience's attention. And if it comes across as being a little bit rambly, it's only because this film is kind of frustrating, and it is an ultimately frustrating film. Whether you like it or not, unfortunately, that's up to the viewer, because everyone's going to take away something different from any time they watch a Nicholas Winding Refn film. And this film is no exception. So I hope you enjoy this review. Hopefully we're able to sit through the length of it. And yeah, hopefully I get to do more of these. I found a decent spot. I have a good camera through other means. And I apologize for the mic. This will probably be remedied down the road, if people like this stuff, and if people like this video, and if they want to see more of it. Whether you agree or disagree, just basically talk about it in the comments. Keep it civil, please. I know this is a Nicholas Winding Refn film. It is easy to basically get into an argument, but keep it civil. But yeah, no, definitely talk about it. I'll be more than happy to read it every once in a while, but for the most part, I've said my piece with the film. I think it's okay. I think it's somewhat visually stunning to watch, but at the same time, it's very much, indifferent and sort of vapid when it comes to the rest of the film in general. You can only get so far on a technical standpoint that if you don't really deliver with a story and characters and a plot, it just makes it harder to really get back into the film if you ever want to look at it again. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, let me know what you think of it, and more importantly, what you think about Neon Demon. in the comments below. So until then, this is the Review Vault, closing the door, signing off. Later.